It was followed by a powerful gust of wind, causing those nearby to stagger back. The crowd wasn't even able to keep their eyes open. The blow from the battle was too much for the crowd to withstand. It must be over, right? Who could withstand such a terrifying punch? At the moment of the explosion, they saw it clearly. Declan's punch had struck Dustin. Even a person made of iron would surely have been obliterated by a semi-grandmaster's punch. When the dust settled, all eyes were firmly fixed on the battlefield. However, the scene that greeted them left them dumbfounded. In the center of the battle ring, Dustin was standing perfectly still. He hadn't dodged nor defended against the attack, allowing Declan's punch to strike his chest. His feet seemed rooted in place, and he showed no sign of being pushed back. The only evidence of the impact was the hollow ground around him that was surrounded by cracks. How is that even possible? The crowd couldn't hide their disbelief as they looked at unharmed Dustin. Declan had delivered a full-powered special technique, yet Dustin blocked it with his body. What kind of monster was he? My goodness! Is this guy made of steel or something? Daphne exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. Declan was a semi-grandmother who could easily shatter stone and metal with just a single punch. However, that same powerful punch that landed on Dustin's body left not a single scratch. It was truly mind-blowing. Who exactly is this guy? Dante was bewildered. He had assumed Declan would secure an easy win, but it didn't seem to go as he expected. What? Griffin frowned. Although he remained silent, he couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. Dustin's defense was nothing short of incredible. If he could withstand a punch from a semi-grandmother. Interesting. Simon stroked his beard, looking at Dustin with interest. Meanwhile, Declan was in a state of shock. His fist was still firmly pressed against Dustin's chest. He never could have anticipated such an unexpected turn of events. He had put everything into that punch, intending to win the match with it. However, he was shocked to realize that his powerful strike seemed to dissipate without a trace and did no harm upon contact with Dustin's chest. The only explanation for this situation was that Dustin's strength greatly surpassed his own, possibly reaching the level of a grandmother. Are you done? Now it's my turn, Dustin said with a faint smile. He then landed a gentle palm strike on Declan's chest. The strike didn't appear to carry any force, but upon coming into contact with Declan, he was sent flying like he had been hit by a speeding train. With a loud thud, he crashed onto the ground several meters away and lost consciousness. The entire dojo fell silent, stunned at the scene they just witnessed. The previously confident Fallon disciples were dumbstruck, unable to believe it. The top prodigy of the Fallons, who was also a semi-grandmother, was defeated just like that. And all it took was just a single effortless palm strike from Dustin. It was absolutely ridiculous. The sight of the seriously injured and unconscious Declan left the crowd at a loss for words. The outcome before them was beyond their expectations, even though it was difficult to accept. They had to admit that Declan had indeed been defeated, much like Samson and Dexter before him. As one of Oakvale's ancient houses, a family renowned for its martial and military powers, not one family member among the younger generation could hold their own against Dustin. This was undeniably an embarrassment. The outcome has been decided. Do we still need to continue with this duel? Dustin smiled faintly, turning his attention toward Griffin and Dante. He had deliberately chosen to secure victory with a single move, so he could save his energy and intimidate the Fallons. Who exactly are you? How were you able to defeat Declan? Dante furrowed his brows, and his expression grim. The Fallons' reputation had taken a serious blow after 3 consecutive defeats. Is it shocking that I defeated him? I believe many people in Oakvale are able to achieve a similar feat. You! Dante was at a loss for words. Only gifted individuals could defeat Declan among his age group. How could a nobody like him win against the Fallon family's highly trained prodigy? Suddenly, Griffin stood up and applauded. With a smile, he said, "Spectacular, truly spectacular." Today has been an eye-opener for me. Griffin! Dantu was stunned, turning back at Griffin in disbelief. The Fallons had just suffered a major embarrassment, yet he still managed to smile. Had he lost his mind? Dustin, I never expected a young man like you to be a grandmother. Remarkable. The Fallons happily acknowledge our defeat, Griffin said candidly. What? This kid is actually a grandmother. Griffin's statement shocked everyone. They exchanged bewildered looks, looking utterly astonished. Dustin appeared to be in his early 20s, yet he had already reached the level of a grandmother. The level of talent he possessed was simply terrifying. It's no wonder. So that was why Declan lost. It turned out that this kid is a skilled grandmother, Dantu remarked. Understanding now. What happened just now was so sudden that he didn't even have time to react. It was clear that nobody else would be able to defeat a semi-grandmother other than a true grandmother. Sir Fallon, you're too kind. I just got lucky, Dustin replied modestly. Dustin, I really admire your skills and talent. I hope that you can join the Fallons as my son-in-law. Griffin dropped a bombshell. What? Dustin was taken aback. Recruiting him was one thing, but the idea of being his son-in-law was simply outrageous. Dad, what are you talking about? Daphne blushed, feeling shy. She stole a quick glance at Dustin. Since his victory over Declan, she had a completely different perspective of him. She had always admired strong individuals, and Dustin's strength and talent had earned her admiration, coupled with his handsome looks and demeanor. The thought of marrying a man like him seemed perfectly befitting her status. Dustin, the Fallons are one of the 4 ancient houses with a rich heritage and extensive influence in the area. As long as you become my son-in-law, I guarantee you'll receive training and resources from the Fallons. I'll even pave the way for you to rise to fame and stand at the peak of the world in a few years, Griffin persuaded. Although the Fallons had many youngsters, Declan was the only child they were truly proud of. However, compared to those top-tier geniuses, Declan fell significantly short and wasn't worthy enough of carrying the Fallon family's legacy. If things continued like this, the Fallon family would undoubtedly face a decline, and their status as one of the ancient houses would lose its prestige. That was why Griffin had been recruiting young, gifted talents in recent years. Sadly, none of them had met his expectations. That was until he witnessed Dustin's skills earlier. He immediately developed a keen interest in him and was willing to entice him with power, influence, and fame. Damn, this guy is incredibly lucky. He gained Sir Fallon's attention, and he also has a beautiful woman by his side. It's like a double stroke of luck. The crowd was both envious and jealous of Griffin's offer to Dustin. Even though they were disciples of the Fallon family, they only had limited resources provided to them. Their success depended solely on their own efforts. However, Dustin was different. Once he joined the Fallons, he would become the star they would prioritize for future development, putting him in a completely different league. How about it? Are you satisfied with my offer? Griffin asked with a smile. The right choice was crystal clear to anyone with common sense. Thank you, Sir Fallon. However, I'm currently not interested in joining any affiliation. Dustin shook his head as he declined. What? Griffin raised an eyebrow, evidently surprised. Dustin, you're essentially gaining powerful support by joining the Fallons. With our support, you can do anything you choose to do. Why wouldn't you consider it? Sir Fallon, that's a little unfair. Simon suddenly stood up. He said seriously, Dustin belongs to the Ballards. Why would he join the Fallons? Don't you think it's inappropriate for you to steal him right before me? The Ballards. Griffin narrowed his eyes and remarked knowingly. My lord, from what I know, Dustin is an independent individual. He's no member of the Ballards. I don't believe this is considered stealing. This old fox clearly had his eyes on Dustin and planned to intervene. He isn't now but will be in the future. Simon stated calmly, this young man is romantically involved with my granddaughter. I've decided to let them get married soon. He'll naturally become part of the family when that time comes. Sir Fallon, you're not planning on breaking us up, are you? Natasha walked up to Dustin and publicly linked her arm with his. She wouldn't let outsiders sway her man. What we say doesn't matter. It's all up to Dustin to decide. Griffin spoke seriously. Dustin, the Fallons have a strong military background and are better suited for you than the Ballards. By joining us, you'll have the opportunity to achieve great success and be generously rewarded. Young man, the Ballards don't fall far behind either. We'll be able to support you whether you decide to serve in court or on the battlefield. Simon countered. While the Ballards excelled in civil service, they lacked in martial prowess. Dustin would help compensate for this weakness of theirs. Dustin, as long as you join the Fallons, we'll grant every condition you put forth. Griffin declared sternly. He didn't mind clashing with the Ballards if that meant attaining this genius. Young man, you'll be engaged to Natasha by tomorrow if you join the Ballards. Simon was equally determined. Dustin, a true man should prioritize his career over women. Women will only hold you back. HMPH, you're supposed to build a family first before making a career. Get your priorities straight. Nonsense. Men should focus on achieving success and building a legacy. Women are secondary. With power and influence, you can find any woman you want. Brits will be brutes. All you are interested in is fighting and killing. You should understand that there are more important things in the world. Relationships are paramount in life. Their back-and-forth bickering soon turned into a heated argument. Both seemed frustrated and exasperated, leaving the crowd dumbfounded by their antics. Both of them were highly influential, figures who commanded power and respect. Why were they fighting like they were children? Did they completely abandon their image? Gentlemen, please stop arguing for now and calm down. Dustin quickly intervened when he sensed the situation getting out of control. Otherwise, if they continued bickering, they might start fighting physically. Dustin, it's time to make a choice. Are you going with the Fallons or the Ballards? Griffin asked. Young man, think about it carefully. Don't make a decision you will regret, Simon added, stroking his beard. For a moment, all eyes were fixed on Dustin. It was a rare sight to witness two influential figures vying for an individual. While it was an immense honor, it also caused a tremendous dilemma. The Fallons were a family with a strong military background. They were an ideal fit for Dustin, given his status as a grandmother. In terms of his future, the Fallons were undoubtedly the better choice. However, as one of the ancient houses, the Ballards were as strong as the Fallons. When combined with Natasha's influence, their proposition became even more persuasive. Most importantly, selecting one side would inevitably upset the other. Both opportunities carried their own risks. I genuinely appreciate both of your generous offers, but I reiterate my stance. I'm not interested in joining any affiliation, so I can only apologize. Dustin declined once more. What? The crowd exchanged glances, looking baffled. Dustin had been presented with the chance of a lifetime by both families. However, he opted to decline them both. The crowd couldn't help but think he was foolish. Dustin, this is a rare opportunity. Are you sure you are going to pass it up? Griffin asked in shock. I'm sure. Dustin nodded. Young man, do you realize that many people try their hardest to join the ancient houses but are brushed aside? You have two promising paths in front of you right now. Are you not going to walk on either of them? Simon was puzzled. I have my own path to follow, Dustin replied. Impressive. You've got ambition. Simon nodded as he smiled. All right, I won't force you if you're not willing. If you get into trouble in the future, feel free to come to me. Simon had looked down on Dustin initially, but his refusal had earned his respect. Men should carve out their own paths. Relying on others could easily cloud someone's ambitions and aspirations. Thank you, my lord. Dustin nodded to express his gratitude. Dustin, I respect your decision. Of course, you're always welcome to visit me if you change your mind. My doors are always open. Griffin smiled faintly. Thank you, Sir Felon. Dustin nodded again. My lord, I have other matters to attend to. I'll be taking my leave now. Griffin shook Simon's hand before turning around to leave. Although he didn't succeed in recruiting Dustin, he took solace in the fact that Dustin didn't join the Ballards either. That meant that the Falons still had a chance to win Dustin over. After all, building a friendly relationship with a talent like Dustin posed numerous advantages without drawbacks. Sweetheart, I won't play the third wheel any longer either. Enjoy your time with him. Simon left after saying his goodbyes. With his granddaughter around, Dustin wouldn't be going anywhere. Dear, let's go and have something to eat. Natasha smiled sweetly. With her arms still linked with Dustin, they walked out of Celestial Dojo. Today's duel had helped Dustin make a name for himself. He defeated many of the Falon family's top talents and won the approval of Natasha's grandfather. He truly managed to kill two birds with one stone. Natasha believed it wouldn't be long before Dustin truly made a name for himself. Over the next few days, Dustin was pretty busy. He had to search for the medical herbs to treat Cinna, rebuild Harmony healers, and monitor the situation regarding Dubom. He also had to take some time out of his schedule to take Natasha out for meals and go shopping with her. In general, Dustin rarely had time for himself. What was worth celebrating was that the production for Dubom was right on track. The Camerons had used their family influence to establish a pharmaceutical company dedicated to selling Dubom. After a round of advertising and word of mouth, their product was already competing with the Swansons and Welch Rejuvenade. Since it was more affordable and had superior efficacy, its reputation had gradually spread within the industry. They were only waiting for the official launch to happen. Meanwhile, the Welch family was holding an emergency meeting due to the latest news. The meeting involved the Welch core family, members and senior members of the Swansons. I just heard that the Camerons have developed a new type of Dubom, which works better than our Rejuvenade. Is that true? Alistair glanced at Ezra and his group grimly as he spoke. That is true. A high-ranking Welch family member stood up and replied, I had someone investigate. The Camerons' Dubom is quite remarkable. It's building up an excellent reputation that surpasses even our Rejuvenade. Even though they haven't officially launched the product, it's gaining considerable popularity. It's posing as a significant threat against our product. His statement threw the entire meeting room into chaos. How is this possible? The Cameron's strength does not lie in medicine. How could they produce such a remarkable product? Has our formula been leaked? Is there a mole among us? Damn it, we invested heavily in the production and promotion of Rejuvenade. We didn't expect to run into issues this early. What do we do now? The people present were in a heated discussion. All of them had invested significant capital into Rejuvenade, hoping to make a substantial profit. Naturally, the current situation had left them feeling anxious. Who wouldn't be when the Camerons' Dubom was cheaper and more effective? Everyone, quiet down. Alistair slammed the table, stunning everyone. The commotion in the meeting room died down instantly. Alistair, considering the Camerons' capabilities, it's impossible for them to develop Dubom within such a short time. I suspect Dustin is responsible for this. Joanne suddenly spoke up. Dustin? Alistair frowned slightly. He had expected this outcome. Dustin holds a grudge against us and seems intent on using the Cameron family's influence to retaliate. I must say, this move is quite cunning, Joanne said coldly. She hadn't initially paid much attention to Dustin, leaving Eleanor and Ezra to deal with him. Little did she expect Dustin to have set up a backup plan and keep the complete formula to himself, giving her the subpar version instead. Once the authentic Dubom was released, their Rejuvenade would have little value. The Welch and the Swansons would suffer significant losses if they didn't do something soon. The fact that a nobody could create such a predicament for two prominent families was unexpected. It was a situation they had never encountered before. HMPH, Dustin got nerves of steel. He actually dared provoke us? He's asking for death. Alistair's expression was grim, and a murderous glint flashed in his eyes. These days, the Welchs had mobilized all their resources to turn Rejuvenate into a hot-selling item. They flooded the market with advertisements, offers, and discounts. They had invested lots of money into it. The original plan was to use this opportunity to build its reputation, make substantial profits, and expand their network. Little did they expect Destin to spoil their plans from the very beginning. It was infuriating. Eleanor, didn't I ask you to deal with Destin as soon as possible? Why is he still alive? Joanne suddenly turned to her daughter, her tone scolding. Eleanor was at a loss for words. Faced with her mother's sharp gaze, she shifted the responsibility onto Ezra instead. Actually, Ezra has been the one handling this matter. Ezra's lips twitched, and he could only respond in resignation. He stood up and said, Ms. Welch, I've hired an expert to deal with him. However, Destin is cunning and has evaded us cleverly like a mouse in the shadows, never showing himself. There's nothing I can do about it either. He had hired multiple people to track Destin down. However, every time they got a lead, Destin would disappear. This had prevented him from taking action. You can't even handle a country bumpkin. What a disappointment, Joanne said coldly. Ezra and Eleanor hung their heads low, not daring to argue. Joaquin, go and personally lead a team to investigate. Capture Destin and bring him back here. And the formula, make sure to obtain it at all costs. Joanne turned around and instructed their butler. Understood, Joaquin responded and left immediately. Joanne, since the Camerons already have the formula, capturing Destin alone will not solve the root of the problem. Alistair cautioned. The Camerons were a larger threat than Destin was. Capturing Destin is just the first step. Next, we'll need to gather the strength of both families and focus on suppressing the Camerons. We will not allow them to put Dubom on sale. Joanne said, if we do that, we'll have to invest more money and resources. Alistair was deep in thought. Spare no expense. If we want to dominate the market, we need to eliminate all obstacles. Joanne declared icily, it's just the Camerons. They're nothing more than an ordinary family. With our family's power, we can put them right out of business. That's right. Let's blacklist the Camerons. Put them out of business. Everyone voiced their support. Since they had already started this project, there was no turning back. They had to take back control no matter what it took. All right, it's settled then. Alistair slammed the table and declared, how dare the Camerons challenge us? They have overestimated themselves. This time, I'll make sure they'll suffer irrevocable losses. That's easy to say, but how should we proceed? Someone asked. The official launch event is tomorrow. I plan to send them a huge present that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. Joanne suddenly smiled. Everyone couldn't help but shudder at what they just saw. Those who knew Joanne well knew that she rarely smiled. The last time she did, she had killed someone. The next morning, at the entrance of Cameron Group, Lana was busy with preparations. Today was the official launch of their new company, and the best moment to launch Dubom. In order to promote Dubom more effectively, she utilized all of the Cameron family's connections and sent out a number of invitations. If all went well, Dubom would become a widely sought-after miracle healing medication. Hey, hang the banner a little higher. Put them where they're most eye-catching, and the red carpet on the ground, and roll it outside. Are the performers here yet? Have them get ready quickly. We're starting soon. Lana kept giving out orders from time to time. She was very detailed in her work, going through everything herself to ensure things were done right. Nothing could go wrong today, so she needed to see to it that everything was on the right track. Lana. Just then, a Maybach pulled up by the curb. Then Mateo, who was all suited up, came out with a smile. Dad, you're here. Lana stopped what she was doing and went up to him. So how is it? Are things going well? Mateo looked around, pleased with what his daughter had achieved. Of course they are. What problems can there be with me personally handling everything? Lana smiled confidently. Good, Mateo nodded before he continued. I've talked to a few of my friends, and they're interested in the Do Bomb. They'll be coming over to support you. Awesome. Thank you, Dad. Lana was elated. Her father's friends were all influential figures, so it would be great for them to attend the launch. I'm putting all my baits on you. Whether or not the Cameron family can do better depends on you now, Mateo said. The Cameron family had put a lot of their resources into producing the Do Bomb. It had been quite an investment on their end. Don't worry, Dad. Everything's going to be just fine. Lana had full confidence. Had it just been the Cameron family alone, she might have been less confident. But now that they had the Dawson family's help, she had nothing to fear. Good, Mateo nodded with a smile. Then he looked around and asked curiously, Hey, where's your friend Dustin? Is he not showing up today when he's the creator of Do Bomb? Speak of the devil. There he is. Lana looked over and gestured in his direction. Mateo followed her gaze and saw a handsome and casually dressed young man coming their way. You've come at just the right time, handsome. Here, allow me to introduce you to my father. Your future father-in-law. Lana winked flirtily. The smile on Dustin's face froze. He couldn't even say what he intended to say. This woman really liked to shock people with her words. Hey, young lady, what nonsense are you saying? Can't you see that you've scared him? Mateo shot Lana a stern glare before he extended his hand toward Dustin. He said with a smile, Mateo Cameron. You can call me Mr. Cameron. Hello, Mr. Cameron, Dustin greeted. I heard from Lana that you're smart, trained in martial arts, and really good looking. Now that I've seen you in person, you really are as she had described. Mateo observed Dustin, carefully with a smile on his face. The young man had the looks and a nice character. Besides, he was also very capable. The only issue was that he didn't have a strong background. But that wouldn't be a problem if he were to marry into the Cameron family. You flatter me, Mr. Cameron. Dustin smiled. He felt slightly uncomfortable under Mateo's gaze. Why does something feel weird around here? As the three conversed, several luxury cars pulled up by the roadside. The doors opened and several poshly dressed people came out. They strode over to Dustin and Lana. However, when Lana saw who they were, the smile on her face disappeared in a flash. Mateo frowned too. Why are they here? Lana exchanged a look with Mateo. Their expressions turned grave. The people who had just gotten out of the cars were not guests who were here to congratulate them on the launch. Instead, they were people from the Welch and the Swanson families. They clearly did not come bearing good intentions. However, Dustin did not seem to show much of a reaction. He seemed to have expected this. With how the Welch and the Swanson families were, they would not have allowed the Cameron family to benefit from what they believed was theirs. They would surely send people over to mess up the launch. It's been a long time, Mr. Cameron. How are you? Alistair approached with a group of his men following behind him. There was an insincere smile on his face. Welcome, Mr. Welch. Mateo, too, had an insincere smile on his face. I heard that the Cameron family has recently developed a miraculous remedial medicine and will officially launch today. Is that true? Alistair asked with a smile. The young people are just trying their hand at it. It's nothing worth mentioning. Mateo waved his hand dismissively. You're being too modest. Mr. Cameron, your medicine has a good reputation in the pharmaceutical field. In fact, it even trumps that of our Rejuvenate. Now that you're releasing it, I'm afraid you'll be leaving us with no business now. Alistair said meaningfully. You must be joking, Mr. Welch. We're just playing around with our small business. How can it ever be a competition for the large-scale business you're dealing with? Mateo answered with a fake smile. Well, if there's no competition, then you might as well join us. We can bring in the money together. What do you say? Alistair's eyes narrowed. Well, Mateo looked hesitant. The old fox actually had his eyes on the fruits of their labor from the research they've done. How greedy! Mr. Welch, we Camerons are used to keeping to ourselves. We dislike joint ventures, so thank you for your kind gesture. But no thanks, Lana politely declined. Lana, we are only inviting you to join us because we see potential in you. Should know what's good for you, Eleanor quipped coldly. That's right. Smart people should know how to adapt to circumstances. As long as you give us the formula of Do Bomb, we can be good partners. But if you do not, we will only be competitors from now on, Ezra said. Alistair watched quietly with a smile on his face. If the Camerons accepted their proposal while they were being civil, he didn't mind sharing part of their profit. But if they do not, he would start taking action. What? Are you threatening us right now? A frosty expression came over Lana's face. So what if we are? Eleanor huffed contemptuously. You, Camerons, aren't even fit to be called elites. How will you even go against two influential families like ours? If you know what's good for you, hand us the formula at once. You might be able to gain some benefits if you do. Otherwise, don't blame us when things get nasty. How dare a second-tiered family challenge to elite families? They truly overestimated themselves. Lana frowned, her expression dark. Beside her, Mateo's smile faded away quickly, too. They knew there was bound to be a fallout between both parties, but they didn't expect the Welch and Swanson families to straight up burn bridges. When things get nasty, Dustin suddenly laughed. You sound really confident. Do you, Welch, really think you can do things as you please? Dustin Reese. So it was you? Eleanor's gaze zeroed in on him as she said frostily, You shameless bastard. The Welch family has been nothing but nice to you. How could you betray us? You gave us a subpar formula and even teamed up with the Cameron family to bring our business down. You're really heartless. Shameless. Heartless. Dustin smirked and looked at her like she was an idiot. Eleanor, are you hearing yourself? I saved your and your grandfather's lives and even gave your family a formula that could make you rich. And what happens? You went back on your word and didn't deliver what you promised. In fact, you even tried to murder me just to have the formula for yourself. Had I not noticed it in time, I would have been a dead man by now. I've helped you so many times, but you, Welch, repay my kindness with ingratitude. You went back on your word. So tell me, who's the shameless one? Huh, who's the heartless one? Dustin's voice got louder as he spoke, knowing that he was in the right. As the onlookers whispered among themselves, Alistair's expression darkened.